Okay, everyone, welcome to the JAGTF close air support training involving dumb bombs. Today we're just going to talk about the cast flight mission from start to finish using dumb bombs. I have my P-47D here, which is our primary close air support aircraft, and I've got 2,000 pounders and a 500 pounder on board. And we're going to talk about everything from mindset to setting up the attack to release points. Alright, and I'm just going to be doing a running commentary as this video progresses. Okay, now that we're airborne, let's talk about mindset for a little bit. It's very typical to see most War Thunder players take off and proceed directly to the combat zone while desperately trying to climb high enough to be able to employ their bombs. Okay, in JAGTF, this is not our standard operating procedure. Okay, as you'll see here, I'm turning at 90 degrees away from the combat area. As you'll look at the map here, I'm headed directly south, with the combat area being to the east of me. Okay? What this is going to do is going to give me time to climb to our proper bombing altitudes. What it also does is it gives me options. Okay? Based on the tactical situation on the map at the time, the enemy may have air superiority. There may be things developing on the map that my friendly ground forces can inform me of and give me a better picture of the battle space. Basically, we take this time to get better situational awareness and improve our survivability. Here in JAGTF, your survivability is something that you are judged on. Okay, we don't want players who simply don't care whether they die or not. Okay, we want players who are playing to win, but also playing to survive. Okay. The reason that this climb out gives us options is, as you'll see, I keep scanning the battle space for enemy aircraft. If I was to be jumped by an enemy aircraft at this time, I would have enough altitude to give me some options. Either I could ditch my ordnance and disengage and run back to either friendly aircraft or my airbase, or I could release my bombs and have enough altitude to get enough energy to have a fighting chance against an enemy fighter bouncing me. So those are options, right? If I go straight to the battle space at 1,000 feet and I get jumped by the same enemy aircraft, I have very limited options. I can't get enough energy to run away, and I can't really get enough energy to be able to fight back against anybody who would be jumping me. Okay? Taking this nice long approach, getting to altitude, gives me time to scan for enemy aircraft, make sure no one's going to jump me, and also gives me time to develop my understanding of the battle space. Okay? Is the enemy capping points? Do my friendly forces indicate that there's a concentration of enemy tanks in a certain portion? Where's the enemy AAA at? All these questions I'm asking myself as I approach the battle space, okay? Don't just rush to the battle space with absolutely no knowledge of what's going on, because that's how you die. Now, as you'll see me looking at my left wing here, okay? When we set up attacks on ground targets, we want to place them in a very specific area in relation to our wing. Okay, if you'll see the probe out on my left wing, from that probe into the area where my cockpit starts here, you see the probe, my 50 cals, then the cockpit. You want to place the target somewhere on the leading edge of your wing there, okay? As soon as he kind of gets close to the leading edge of your wing, somewhere in that distance, you should start your roll-in and begin your attack on the enemy. That will give you a proper dive angle of about 30 to 45 degrees. If the target is past that probe, kind of farther out past the wing, you will result in a very shallow dive angle, which is still doable from altitude, but it's much harder to place your bombs accurately. Now I'm just scanning for a target here. I'm orbiting the battle space at my bombing altitude. Bombing altitude should be somewhere between 5,000 and 8,000 feet, with a minimum no less than 3,000 feet. Do not attack targets unless you have 3,000 feet or more on the airplane. 5,000 feet being the best. Now, I don't know if you can see it here, but I see a target. He's right to the left of that cap circle down there on the, what would that be, the south edge of the lake. He's shooting. He's already kind of where I want him on my wing route, but I'm already kind of like directly over top of him, so I don't want to be coming straight down. I'm not a dive bomber. I don't have dive brakes. I want 30 to 45 degrees of dive angle, not 90 degrees of dive angle. At this altitude, the P-47 being a very heavy airplane, it would be very difficult to bomb accurately and pull out. Alright? Now, before I start my dive, I'm going to set what's called my dive trim. I'm just going to give you some numbers for the P-47. As you'll see here, I'm putting about -10 to -12 elevator trim on the P-47. No aileron trim, and just a little bit of right rudder trim. Okay, these numbers you should figure out for yourself. They're going to change with flight model changes, game changes, so on and so forth. But the primary point here is set your dive trim before you start your dive on the target. Okay, so the two things we're accomplishing right now: place the target at the leading edge of your wing route, somewhere between the probe and your cockpit, which I'm doing right now. Set your dive trim. Okay, he's about to be at the leading edge of my wing. My dive trim is set, and I will begin my roll-in. Power is off. Again, I'm diving with no engine power here. I get the target in my sights. I place him at my release point in my gun sight, which we'll talk about. There's the release. Pull out, and there's the kill. Now I'm going to look at my gun sight for a little bit and show you where I release on the P-47. Again, this will be different from aircraft to aircraft, but on any aircraft you want to find your release point based on your dive angle and speed. If you look at the P-47 gun sight, you'll see that little half moon shape. It kind of looks like a happy face. Below that line there are two tick marks. That first tick mark or the second tick mark is your release point. Okay, so again, the two tick marks at the bottom of the gun sight, as you're looking at it here, that's where you want to place the enemy tank. If you've got your dive angle and your dive speed and your dive trim correctly, that release point is fairly accurate. And this concludes the video.